So good evening, everybody. I didn't really know what I was going to say tonight. I don't have an academic background in economics or in freedom, and I wasn't absolutely sure what we were going to be doing tonight. I did ask Bob what he wanted me to say, and he said, "Say anything you want." So we're right back at square one. Excuse me, I might have to put my glasses on. My understanding is that I'm meant to be speaking about economic freedom and the Abraham Accords. So basically, and this is a line I did think up today, where chutzpah meets inshallah, Bob. Huh? And I think that kind of sums up the economic experiment of peace between between Israel and at least the United Arab Emirates. I can't speak about other countries in the Abraham Accords without their permission, so I won't. But it is a bit like that. There was this big enthusiasm on both sides, and everybody, a lot of Israelis turned up here, said we're going to do business, we're going to sell everything to these guys, and we said inshallah, inshallah, and that's gone on for some time. I know that there have been some deals that worked, but there's still a lot to see coming in the future. When I was thinking about this subject of economic freedom, initially I thought, well, there's nothing wrong with economic freedom. I did do a bit of research and I looked it up, and I thought actually in theory, the Emirates scores quite high on economic freedom. So, things like property rights. The UAE is one of the hottest property markets in the world, and that's got to be because we value property rights. Voluntary exchange, we've got a good legal system, and in fact, we have multiple legal systems. We've got all kinds of jurisdictions, including here at ADGM. So we do understand the rule of law, and we do understand, being very, very open to the differing needs of global investors. Open marketplace doesn't seem to be more open than the Emirates. We've got free trade agreements with a whole bunch of different countries. Not sure if we have one with Israel, do we? We do, right, well, there you are, excellent. And I think that was one of the quickest ones we've ever signed. And same on the Israeli side. Minimum government intervention. No, I'm not so sure that that's the case here. We do have a lot of government intervention simply because the government has large amounts of surplus capital and they need to deploy it. I sometimes wonder, why they don't allow the private sector to get up and do these things. And it turns out that, well, the private sector has been invited to exercise their economic freedom, and they're a little too cautious. So government takes up the banner there. Low tax, yeah, we're low tax. Innovation, well, we promote innovation. I know that as an Emirati. How much innovation actually happens, that's up to us to figure out. And regulatory efficiency, yeah, I think we've got that too. So in theory, we've got this fantastic kind of basis for economic freedom here in the Emirates. I think, though, there's another side of it, which is the practical and more contextual side. There is a lot of economic freedom, there's a lot of opportunity, there's a tremendous amount of physical, financial, and legal infrastructure. But I think there are two problems. One is the problem of social capital, and secondly, the problem of cultural capital. So we invite many different investors into the country, and we give them all kinds of privileges, and we ask them to sort of invest and build companies and use our infrastructure as a base, and it's fantastic. And they're disruptive and they're innovative and they do all kinds of things. However, we as Emiratis also hold ourselves back in a certain way. This is just an idea that I've been toying with, is that actually our cultural capital holds us back and prevents us from going out into the marketplace because we have social taboos, because women are not meant to culturally do certain things in the economy. But for example, I remember when I was a kid, the idea of a shopping mall in Abu Dhabi was ape. Nobody had a shopping mall, right? Until Dubai demonstrated that, it's not that ape, it's not that bad to have a shopping mall, you can make a ton of money. So we have these taboos that hold us back at the same time as watching others in our own economy go forward. And just a couple of examples, which I continue to go back to. There's this big focus on disruption and innovation globally. It's very exciting terms. When it comes to our economy, we do have innovation and disruption. But who is it who's leading the innovation and disruption? It's people who don't necessarily have the same sensitivities to local kind of Emirati feelings. So I remember when I was a kid, owning a taxi was a way of spreading wealth. Or giving out taxi licenses was a way of spreading wealth to the Emiratis. And for a very long time, who could have a taxi was an extremely important issue, right? You get this monthly income. And then along comes a disruptor called Karim and takes on the taxi corporations of the Emirates. And I thought to myself, wait a second, but this is a taboo. You can't do that. There are a whole bunch of Emiratis who are relying on these taxis for their own income, and you're coming along and saying, I'm going to disrupt it. And it occurred to me that no Emirati, even though the idea of Uber was out there, no Emirati would have said, hey, I'm going to go and take on the taxi corporations. Because we knew how sensitive that issue was culturally. And yet, two foreigners came in, saw that there was economic freedom, saw that, they'd be forgiven for not having understood cultural sensitivities, and they built on this idea, which is essentially a cut and paste or copy and paste. So I think the issue with economic freedom is incredibly important. And I think it is where this country is moving towards. We're continually opening up our economy, we're continually opening up our society to forces of globalization. We're trying to become the hub for the best in the world. At the same time, are we holding ourselves back as the Emirati community, right? Are we holding ourselves back by not throwing ourselves into something that will perhaps cause us identity issues, perhaps make us uncomfortable? That's what I'm particularly worried about. Then there's the issue of social capital. And this is one of the advantages that we have in the Emirates, is that we have a lot of social capital. We've got the connections, family, tribe, clan, and there are all these different ways in which we can perhaps kind of skirt the competitive edge of economic freedom and essentially gather rents for ourselves. So I think all I can say is that I was a bit confused at the subject of economic freedom in the Emirates. In terms of the Abraham Accords, I think the Abraham Accords. Obviously, there's the most important part of it was actually making peace between the Emirates, the United Arab Emirates, and Israel. That was extremely important. It was a way in which we were saying that we're a sovereign nation. We're moving forward with our own interests. And there are security interests, there are economic interests as well. But my question is on the subject again of economic freedom and the way it matters to individuals. Where are the small deals? Where's all the people-to-people activity that we would expect in that kind of situation? So I didn't expect to be this serious when I came up here. So I'd like to ask if anybody has any questions. Perhaps we can change the tone a little.
I just wanted to ask, is it okay if I ask a personal question?
It's too late. Yeah, go for it.
I want to know why you have a British accent, or a slight British accent.
Because I grew up speaking English as a first language. I went to Khomerat, or as we used to call it, Al-Kabair, right? You remember? Then I went to the UK and I studied there, both school and university. And then I spent 30 years now trying to get rid of the accent, so I apologize. I apologize. Yeah. So I don't understand. My sons have American accents. They've never been to America.
Okay, so hello, Your Excellency.
Hi.
I would like to ask a question that was running on my mind once I saw that you're the ambassador of the UAE to the Vatican City.
Yeah.
So 3 months ago, I was in Rome, and I came to the border of the Vatican City, which was closed because it was 11 p.m.
Uh-huh.
So I saw that it's so small. I was wondering, where are the offices of the embassies of the Vatican City?
All right. Well, this is the important bit. I'm non-resident ambassador to the Vatican. So my office is in Dubai. Yeah, the Vatican is very small. But the Vatican actually owns a lot of the property around in Rome. So if you want an office, they'll give it to you. And then you have to deal with rent, and you have to deal with negotiation and so on. But yeah, don't forget, I mean, most of Italy belonged to the Vatican, right? Yeah.
What do you see as potential dangers or obstacles to proceeding with the Abraham Accords, to creating the connections to get even further, do you see any obstacles or dangers to our relationships between Israel and the UAE?
I want to turn that around and ask you. We never realized that Israel had such a volatile political system. So we're waiting for the situation to calm down. Look, the Emirates is on a particular path. We've made peace with Israel. There should be no serious obstacles. There's no turning back from peace. I mean, once you take that step, that's a big step. But Israel is full of surprises, and so we just have to step back and watch and see what happens next.
For your talk. This is my first time in the UAE.
Excellent.
And it is incredibly impressive, the development that's taken place. So I guess I have two questions. What do you attribute the great success UAE has had over the past 20, 30 years in building this economy and being a haven for investment? And then what's the next step? How do you continue this process? You have free trade agreements, you have the basic setup in place. Are there things you have to be proactive about to keep this moving in the right direction?
I think one of the, obviously, the key reasons for the success is the fact that we're a federation as opposed to a unitary state. And that there is a great incentive for all the participants to remain in a federated state. It allows for competition at the local level, and it allows for comparison as well, and sort of continually out-competing your neighbor. But there are also a couple of elements. One is the character of the Dubai society and the character of Abu Dhabi society. These two very powerful forces. One is commercially driven, but deprived of oil resources, and the other is a very kind of a noble, honor-driven society, but has a tremendous amount of natural resources. And I think we're all very lucky that that's the way things worked out. And so they're continually working in tandem. One pulls the other, and they alternate almost. So I think that's part of it. Again, I don't think you can replicate this in other countries. Often we talk about the Emirates as a model for other societies, and that's something that we're proud of. But I mean, there's very specific contexts that allowed us to get to that stage. Where are we going next? I think after COVID, we came to a certain amount of, certain realizations that we need to be as efficient economically as possible, and that would require certain sacrifices in terms of openness to the outside world. And what that does to our culture locally is something that, I suppose is just to be observed and potentially debated. I mean, here I'm speaking to you and my first language is English. So there's a whole sort of set of changes that are going to take place in Emirati society as a result of the opening up of the economy. And it is about the economy more than anything else today.
What is the plan for the UAE after oil gets run over, or just will be obsolete? Renewable energies.
The plan after that, well, I mean,
Economic plan.
yeah, I mean, well, when you're saying when we run out of oil or when the world stops using oil?
One of the either.
All right. Well, I don't think we're going to run out, and I don't think the world is going to stop using oil. So, but nevertheless, there is a desire, and there's a very clear goal of not relying on oil wealth to keep the economy going. So that's why there's so much openness. That's why we're creating all kinds of incentives to make sure that the best businesses, the best minds, the best scientists come here to the Emirates. And there's no specific direction given to them on what they should do, but there is an openness, and we invite people to make the best of the resources that we do have. And I think that we're reaching a kind of we've already reached I don't like the term tipping point, but a turning point. And that happened during COVID and just after COVID, that the Emirates has taken on a different role globally, and we're now just reaping the benefits. I mean, it's almost without massive effort. A lot of other countries try to label themselves, brand themselves, market themselves. The Emirates is lucky that it just exists, right? And people already know it and want to be here. So, yeah. Thank you. So you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, it's similar to this question, but now we're going towards like non-oil-based economy.
Yeah.
And like we started getting taxes just a few years ago. And like, what's the plan of like, what's the like other than oil or taxes that the economy can like get from?
We'll do what everybody else who's successful in the marketplace does. We'll sell hope. Yeah. We'll sell great tech companies. We'll sell artificial intelligence ideas. We'll sell. I don't know. We just have to get into the game of capitalism, hyper-capitalism, and have a lot of fun. Some very grim faces over there. I'm really worried. Have I said anything to upset anybody? No. Okay.
I think it is amazing the giant strides that the UAE has made over the last 30 years to transform itself. You touched upon the fact that because of your federated nation, state of the UAE, perhaps it can't be replicated in your neighbours. But what are because you have taken these drastic steps and they have been immensely successful, looking forward, how will the Middle East take, what example will it take from you, even if they can't copy it exactly?
Well, I'm not sure anybody does pay attention to what others are doing. So if they do, then there's a kind of a surface understanding and a desire to outcompete and outdo. And one of the things I think is that some of the greatest successes of the UAE were not built with our oil wealth, they were built with other people's money. And when you're satisfying the needs of a market or satisfying the needs of a client and a customer, you're likely to do a much better job than by throwing billions of dollars at a problem. So I think that's one of the things. But I don't get the impression that many people in the Middle East ask other people's advice or take it. And we can only pray that McKinsey will do its job and spread the good news. Yeah? Is that the gospel? It is.
Yes. Listened carefully to your comment that sounds like you're a bit disappointed in the two-way trade that Israel and the UAE have had since the Abraham Accords started. Unless I'm misinterpreting something. It doesn't seem to be working its way down to the person-to-person level.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed. I mean, it's just kind of my own observation. Yeah, I may be completely off, but that's the impression I get. And it's if you don't mind, it may take time. There's the initial euphoria, there's an initial excitement, then you come face to face with reality. You withdraw, both sides withdraw, they rethink, and then you begin to think seriously. How much time and effort do I really want to put into figuring out somebody else's business, somebody else's economy, somebody else's practices? Yeah.
Push back a little bit.
Sure.
I think the data was, last data I saw, somebody in this room may know it.
Yeah.
I do that. The two-way trade was up 46%
Yeah.
between two nations on a trailing 12-month basis. And
Yeah.
it's projected to go to over $5 billion US
Yeah.
in the upcoming period. Which is pretty good.
Well, I mean, from a low start, sure. Yeah.
And these are countries that have fewer than 10 million residents in each case.
Yes, this is, yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So was your comment really driven by the view that there's a lot more potential out there and it's just not happening? And then you said people from the Middle East, unless I'm misinterpreting something, you don't ask for
Advice.
I'm going to ask for advice here in Texas, but what do you think needs to be done to get it to work down that level to get that potential going beyond that 5?
So the billion, 2 billion, 5 billion, who is actually behind those deals? They're fairly large deals, I believe, right? And whether they're in security, oil and gas, and then of course I think the diamond trade is another one that might be. But at the level of kind of small and medium-sized companies, I don't see any kind of tremendous activity. So those deals are sovereign wealth funds or major state-owned enterprises making deals. They can make those deals on a commercial basis. They can make those deals on a political basis. They don't necessarily mean that there's a really deepening of a relationship of people to people. And I think initially there was a great deal of hope and excitement that there was a people-to-people piece. I think it still can be, but I don't know. I hear that Israelis complain that they don't complain, but they've observed that Emiratis don't come to holiday in Israel. I can only think the problem is that we have Dubai. So when we want to go on holiday, we go to Dubai. So you got competition. Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for coming tonight. You talked about the last question about the person-to-person things we can contribute to each other.
Yeah.
What do you think is the sector that both countries can ideally make the most of? Or if you had to choose one specific sector, all the different deals, business, what do you think is the most precise thing that can contribute to the both two nations?
Well, one of the things I noticed when I was working as an active diplomat was there was this big focus on trying to get business communities to speak to each other. And it occurred to me that actually business communities are already fairly efficient. They're always looking for opportunity. And having government sort of turn up and say, you know what, we need to have another business council so you guys can discuss what you're not going to do with each other. And I remember actually organizing a business council between a bunch of billionaires from the Emirates and a bunch of billionaires from Russia, and it was in Moscow. And everybody was furious because they said, no, I'm not putting any money in. I'm expecting money from you. So that's kind of where I'm very hesitant about government getting too involved in trying to promote economic ties. Maybe there's a legal infrastructure that you can put into place, but yeah, if you've got entrepreneurs who are looking for opportunity, there's tons of opportunity in the Emirates. You just need to spend time sort of digging around, right? But am I, as a government representative, going to encourage you to come and do something, open a burger joint, or bring some amazing Israeli shawarma over? No, that's up to you. Up to you to figure out. So in theory, everybody was talking about water and agriculture. In practice, whatever happened? The only agricultural company I know that's doing any work here is from Australia. And he's not Israeli at all. So maybe you guys could explain. Yeah.
So you guys launched Vision 2020 and Vision 2030 in 2010.
Yeah.
And it was focused on moving to a knowledge-based economy.
Yeah.
I wanted to know how much of that attempt to move to a knowledge-based economy influenced the decision to normalize relations with Israel. Because you need the flow of knowledge between states in order to achieve that kind of economy.
Yeah, I'm absolutely certain that had some role. The fact is that Israel is a great producer of knowledge, and we recognize that, and it is very much a hub. And so, if we were to be successful as a platform, we needed to be connected to other platforms that are also similarly successful. So I think that's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah. Also, moving to a knowledge economy, you may move to the point where you have knowledge that you can't go any further, right?
Absolutely.
Good. Yes.
So, continue to build on my interest in your book.
Good man. You must all buy the book, by the way, each of you individually. No, thank
You bring some tomorrow and sign.
Yeah, I can sign them, I won't bring them.
So my question, can you build on your clear skills in communicating with young people that think about the future to share some thoughts with this group here? Beginning their careers,
Bob.
formulating their thoughts about how to look at the world.
What have you done? Yeah. Oh, no.
What are your advice you have for these young people about how to think about moving forward in their lives?
Equip yourself with as much knowledge and skills that you can. Continue to learn. I'm now over 50, and with that, I suppose I became a little cynical. So I'd say spend your 35 years up until the age of 50 being idealistic, but be ready to be cynical afterwards, you know? It's fine, it's okay. There's a space for that, yeah? I worry that the way things are moving is that if you don't watch out for yourself, there'll be nobody to watch out for. I often thought that focus on community, focused on others, focus on the overall general good was more important than focus on the self. And now I would turn those around. If you don't have a solid grasp of yourself, your interests as an individual, above all, then you risk a lot. Yeah. You need to make sure that you are as well protected as possible in quite an aggressive environment, otherwise known as the world around you. Protect yourself as much as possible, and then from that position, be as generous as you can. Yeah, but not the other way around. Bob, is that okay? Great. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.